A gym trainer humiliated a woman for her poor form until he discovered she was a stroke survivor fighting to walk again. Thought I was being brave, the ultimate truth that changed everything forever. I'm Marcus, 29 male. I told a woman at my gym that she was embarrassing herself, only to discover the most heartbreaking truth that changed everything I thought I knew about judgment and compassion. My name is Marcus Rivera. I've been a personal trainer at Elite Fitness for the past 5 years. The gym has been my second home since I was 22. I take pride in maintaining the respectful, focused atmosphere that our members have come to expect. I've always believed that gyms should be safe spaces where people can work on their fitness goals without distraction or disruption. Jake Morrison, the gym manager, hired me not just for my certifications, but because I understood the culture he wanted to build. Marcus, he told me on my first day, this isn't just about building muscles. It's about building confidence, discipline, and respect. Every member should feel like they belong here. Those words stuck with me, and I've tried to embody that philosophy in everything I do. Over the years, I've dealt with all kinds of situations. There was the time last summer when a group of college guys kept dropping weights loudly and leaving equipment scattered around. I approached them calmly, explained our gym etiquette, and they actually thanked me for the guidance. Then there was the incident 6 months ago with a woman who kept taking phone calls during peak hours, disturbing everyone around her. A gentle conversation helped her understand why we ask people to step outside for calls, and she became one of our most considerate members. I've also handled more serious situations, like when a man was making inappropriate comments to female members. Jake and I worked together to address that immediately, ensuring our gym remained a comfortable space for everyone. These experiences taught me that most problems could be solved with direct, honest communication and a genuine desire to maintain our community standards. The gym operates on an unspoken code of mutual respect. We greet each other with nods. We wipe down equipment after use. We re-rack our weights. We're mindful of others' space and comfort. It's this atmosphere that makes Elite Fitness special, and it's something I've always been protective of. That's why when Elena started showing up 3 weeks ago, I noticed her immediately. Elena appeared to be in her mid-30s, dark hair usually pulled back in a ponytail and workout clothes that suggested she was serious about fitness. Day 1, something felt off about her gym behavior. Her first week, I watched her struggle with basic exercises. She would attempt bicep curls with weights that seemed too heavy, her form completely wrong, arms swinging wildly, back arched at dangerous angles. When she moved to the leg press machine, she made loud groaning sounds that echoed across the gym floor. Other members started glancing in her direction, some with concern, others with visible annoyance. I initially thought she might be new to weightlifting, so I approached her with a friendly offer. Hi there, I'm Marcus, one of the trainers here. I noticed you might want some tips on form. Would you like me to show you a safer way to do those curls? Elena looked at me with what seemed like suspicion and shook her head quickly. No, I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. Her voice was slightly slurred, and I assumed she might have been drinking before coming to the gym. Another red flag. The second week, her behavior became more disruptive. She would drop weights with loud crashes, seemingly unaware of how it went, startled everyone around her. During her cardio sessions on the treadmill, she would make rhythmic grunting sounds that could be heard even over the ambient gym music. I watched Sarah, one of our longtime members, actually cut her workout short and leave early one evening after. Elena's particularly loud session, the most concerning incident, happened on a Tuesday evening during peak hours. Elena was using the Smith machine for squats, but her movements were erratic and uncontrolled. She was gripping the bar so tightly her knuckles were white, and with each rep, she let out what sounded like pained cries. The entire weight area went quiet, everyone frozen and staring. Jake pulled me aside that evening. Marcus, we've had 3 member complaints this week. People are saying they feel uncomfortable working out when she's here. One woman asked if we could suggest she get a personal trainer or use the gym during off-peak hours. I felt torn. Elite Fitness prided itself on being welcoming to people of all fitness levels. But Elena's behavior was clearly affecting the experience of our other members. Maybe she just needs someone to really explain gym etiquette, I suggested. I'll try talking to her again. But when I approached Elena the next day, she was even more defensive. I paid my membership fee just like everyone else, she said, her words coming out slowly and deliberately. I have every right to be here. She was absolutely correct, and I backed off. But privately, I started to wonder if she was seeking attention, or perhaps dealing with issues that made the gym an inappropriate environment for her. The third week brought the incident that would change everything. It was a busy Thursday evening, around 7 p.m., when the gym is typically packed with people getting their workouts in after work. Elena was at the cable machine, attempting what looked like lot pull-downs. Oh, God. But her technique was so poor it was almost dangerous. She was jerking the weight down with her entire body, the cable snapping back up with violent force each time she lost control. But it wasn't just the form that was disruptive, it was the sounds she was making. With each rep, Elena let out loud guttural noises that sounded like she was in genuine distress. U-N-G-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H. The sounds echoed across the gym floor. I watched as person after person stopped their workouts to stare. Margaret, 70-year-old woman who'd been a member for years, was on the elliptical nearby. I saw her remove her headphones and look around with confusion and concern. Two college students at the free weights exchanged glances and whispered to each other. Even Jake emerged from his office to see what was happening. That's when I noticed Elena was also sweating profusely. Not the normal workout sweat, but the kind that suggested something was wrong. Her face was flushed red, and she seemed to be struggling with the simple act of gripping the cable handle. The final straw came when Elena attempted to increase the weight. As she pulled down on the cable, she lost her grip entirely. Oh, the weight. Stack slammed down with a crash that reverberated through the entire gym, and Elena stumbled backward, nearly falling into Margaret's elliptical machine. The entire gym went silent. Everyone was staring now, and I could see the discomfort and confusion on their faces. Margaret looked genuinely frightened. Jake was walking over with a concerned expression. That's when I made the decision that I would regret for the rest of my life. I walked directly over to Elena, who was standing by the cable machine, breathing heavily and looking confused. My frustration from 3 weeks of complaints, disrupted workouts, and what I perceived as inconsiderate behavior finally boiled over. Elena, I said, keeping my voice low but firm, I need to talk to you. She looked up at me with those same suspicious eyes. What? Look, I've tried to be patient, but this isn't working. You're disrupting everyone's workout. Your form is dangerous, and honestly, you're embarrassing yourself. Maybe you should consider getting some proper training before coming back, or finding a gym that's more suited to your situation. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Elena's face went completely white, and for a moment I thought she might collapse. She stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not defiance, but pure, crushing humiliation. She started to say, but no words came out. Her hand went to her throat, and I realized she was struggling to speak clearly. That's when Dr. Sarah Chen, who had been quietly using the rowing machine nearby, stood up and walked over to us. Elena, Dr. Chen said gently, and I was surprised they knew each other. Are you okay? Elena's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Dr. Chen. I was just trying to... Her words were slow and deliberate, each one requiring visible effort. Dr. Chen put a protective arm around Elena's shoulders and turned to face me. Her expression was calm but serious. Marcus, I think there's something you need to understand about Elena. The gym around us had returned to its normal noise level, but I felt like everything was happening in slow motion. For one, I don't understand, I said. Elena is my patient, Dr. Chen explained quietly. She's a physical therapist herself, actually. 6 months ago, she suffered a stroke. She's 35 years old. She's been working incredibly hard to regain her motor functions, her speech, and her independence. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Elena, really looked at her for the first time, and suddenly everything made horrible sense. The poor form was her brain relearning how to control her muscles. The loud vocalizations were involuntary, a common side effect of stroke recovery. The sweating, the trembling grip, the unsteady movements. It was all part of her rehabilitation. Process, the gym, Dr. Chen continued, is part of her therapy. I recommended she start with light exercises to rebuild her strength and coordination. She was a marathon runner before her stroke, Marcus. This gym used to be her second home. Elena was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. She tried to speak again. I know I look ... different. I know I sound ... strange. But this is the hardest thing ... I've ever done. My stomach dropped to the floor. I had just humiliated a stroke survivor who was fighting to reclaim her life. I had taken someone who was already struggling with the most basic functions and made her feel ashamed for trying. Elena, But she held up a shaking hand. Before my stroke, she said slowly, each word carefully formed, I could deadlift 150. I could run ... 26 miles. Now I celebrate. When I can grip ... a 5-pound weight ... for 30 seconds. The weight of what I had done crashed over me. This wasn't about gym etiquette or disruptive behavior. This was about a human being, fighting the most difficult battle of her life, and I had just told her she was embarrassing herself for trying. I thought ... Elena continued, struggling with the words. I thought if I kept coming, if I kept trying ... maybe I could feel ... like myself again. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. Elena has been making remarkable progress. The fact that she's here, pushing herself every day despite the challenges, takes more courage than most people will ever need in their lifetime. Jake had approached us during this conversation, and I could see the understanding and regret in his eyes as well. Elena, he said softly, I had no idea. I am so sorry if we made you feel unwelcome. Here. But Elena was already gathering her things. It's okay, she said, though it clearly wasn't. I understand ... I make people ... It's uncomfortable. Maybe I should ... find somewhere else. As she walked toward the exit, her movements careful and deliberate, I realized I had just destroyed something precious, not just Elena's confidence, but her hope. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene over and over, each memory more painful than the last. I had spent 5 years building a reputation as someone who helped people achieve their fitness goals, who created a welcoming environment, who understood that everyone's journey was different. In one moment of frustration and poor judgment, I had become everything I claimed to stand against. I researched stroke recovery until 3 a.m, learning about the challenges Elena was facing. Motor function problems, speech difficulties, cognitive fatigue, emotional vulnerability. She was dealing with all. Of this while trying to rebuild her life from scratch. The irony was devastating. Elena had been a physical therapist, someone who had probably helped countless stroke patients herself. She understood better than anyone what she was going through, and yet she had continued to show up at the gym every day, pushing through the embarrassment and difficulty because she was determined to recover. I thought about my grandmother, who had suffered a stroke when I was in college, remembered visiting her during her rehabilitation, watching her struggle to relearn how to hold a fork, how to form words, how to walk across a room. The frustration in her eyes when her body wouldn't cooperate with her mind. The small victories that meant everything: the first time she could write her name again, the first time she could climb a flight of stairs. My grandmother had died too, years later, never fully recovering her independence. But I remembered how important it was to her that people treated her with dignity, that they didn't make her feel broken or pitied. I had failed to give Elena that basic respect. The next morning, Jake called me into his office before the gym opened. Marcus, he said, I've been thinking about yesterday all night. So have I replied. Jake, I messed up in the worst possible way. We both did, he said. I had member complaints, and instead of trying to understand what was happening, I asked you to deal with it. We made assumptions, and we failed someone who needed our support the most. We talked for an hour about what had happened. Had already researched local physical therapy programs and stroke support groups. I want to make this right, he said. Not just for Elena, but for any future members who might be dealing with similar challenges. Has she canceled her membership? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. Not yet, Jake said, but she hasn't been back since Thursday. spent the weekend thinking about Elena, wondering how she was doing, whether she was okay. I imagined her at home, probably questioning whether she should continue with her gym routine at all. I had potentially destroyed weeks or months of progress in her recovery. Dr. Chen returned to the gym on Monday, and I approached her immediately. "Dr. Chen, could I talk to you about Elena?" She studied my face for a moment before nodding. "Was hoping you would ask." "How is she?" I asked. "Devastated," Dr. Chen said bluntly. "She's been working with me for 6 months, Marcus." This gym represented independence to her, a return to something she loved. What happened Thursday set her back significantly. The words felt like a punch to the chest. "Is there anything I can do? Any way I can make this right?" Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Lena's afraid to come back. She's convinced that everyone here sees her as a disruption, as someone who doesn't belong. But this gym is important. To her recovery, and giving up on it would be giving up on a big part of herself." "What can I do?" I asked again. "Learn," she said simply. "Understand what stroke recovery really looks like, and help make this place truly inclusive, not just in theory but in practice." Over the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into learning everything I could about stroke recovery and adaptive fitness. I contacted the local stroke association, attended online seminars, and read research papers about post-stroke exercise therapy. I learned about the different types of strokes, the various ways they could affect cognitive and motor functions, the incredible complexity of the recovery process. I discovered that what I had interpreted as Elena's poor form was actually her brain creating new neural pathways to control her muscles. The sounds she made weren't attention-seeking. They were involuntary vocalizations that helped some stroke survivors coordinate their movements and breathing. Most importantly, I learned that exercise was crucial for stroke recovery, but that many survivors avoided gyms because of exactly the kind of judgment and misunderstanding. I had shown Elena, Jake, and I worked together to develop a comprehensive plan. We researched adaptive equipment, modified training protocols, and connected with local rehabilitation centers. We also planned training sessions for all staff members about working with people who had disabilities or were recovering from medical events. But none of that would matter if Elena didn't feel safe returning to the gym. Dr. Chen had given me Elena's phone number with her permission, but I stared at it for 3 days before I found the courage to call. When she answered, her voice was cautious. "Elena, this is Marcus from Elite Fitness. I was wondering if I could meet with you, maybe for coffee, to talk about what happened." There was a long pause. "I don't think ... that's necessary." "Please?" I said, "I owe you an apology, and I'd like the chance to give it properly. But more than that, I've learned some things over the past couple weeks that I think might be helpful." We met at a coffee shop near the gym the following Saturday. Elena looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile somehow. She moved carefully, deliberately, and I noticed she had trouble gripping her coffee cup with her right hand. "Elena," began. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry, but I know that's not enough. What I said to you was ignorant, hurtful, and completely wrong. I made assumptions about you without trying to understand your situation, and I failed you as both a fitness professional and as a human being." She listened without speaking, her expression unreadable. "I've spent the last 2 weeks learning about stroke recovery," I continued. "I've talked to specialists, attended seminars, and read everything I could find. I understand now that what I saw as disruptive behavior was actually you fighting incredibly hard to rebuild your life." Elena's eyes began to water. "Do you know," she said slowly, "what it's like to go from being able to deadlift your body weight to struggling with a 5-pound dumbbell? Can't imagine," I said honestly. "Every day I come to that gym," she continued, "I have to face what I've lost, but I also get to fight for what I might get back. Until you told me I was embarrassing myself, I thought I was being ... brave." My throat tightened. "You were being brave. You were brave." I was the one who was embarrassing myself. I was embarrassing the profession I claimed to represent. We talked for 2 hours. Elena told me about her stroke, about waking up in the hospital, unable to move her right side, unable to speak clearly, Unable to recognize some of her closest friends, she told me about the months of physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, about the depression that followed, the fear that she might never feel like herself again. She also told me about her life before the stroke. She had been a physical therapist specializing in sports medicine, working with athletes to recover from injuries. She had been training for her 4th marathon when the stroke happened. The gym, she said, was where I felt strongest, where I proved to myself that I could overcome anything. When I started coming back, it was the first place where I felt hope again. When she finished talking, I made my proposal. Elena, I can't undo what I said to you, but I can ask for a chance to make Elite Fitness the place it should have been for you from the beginning. Jake and I have been working on some changes, and I'd like to show you what we've planned. She considered this for a long moment. What kind of changes? Changes that will make the gym truly inclusive for people recovering from strokes, traumatic brain injuries, and other conditions that affect movement and coordination. Training for all our staff, adaptive equipment, and most importantly, a culture that celebrates progress at every level. Elena was quiet, thinking. Finally, she said, I'll consider it. Elena returned to Elite Fitness 3 weeks later, and I was there to greet her personally. Jake had worked with Dr. Chen to develop a customized training plan that would support Elena's continued recovery while building her confidence back up. The changes we had implemented were significant. Installed adaptive equipment, including specialized grips and supports for people with limited hand function. We had created quiet training times for members who might feel more comfortable with fewer people around. Most importantly, we had trained every staff member to recognize that fitness looks different for everyone, and that apparent poor form might actually represent someone's maximum effort and biggest victory. Elena's first day back was emotional for both of us. I watched her approach the same cable machine where I had confronted her weeks earlier, and I could see the hesitation in her movements. Would you like me to spot you? I asked gently. She nodded, and I stood nearby as she began her lot pull-downs. Her form was still unconventional by standard measures, but now I understood that she was working with the neural pathways available to her, adapting her technique to accommodate her current abilities. When she completed her first set, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. I thought I would never feel comfortable here again. This is your gym too, I said. It always should have been. Over the following months, Elena became not just a member but an inspiration to everyone at Elite Fitness. Other members began to understand her situation, and instead of staring with confusion, they started offering encouragement. Margaret, the elderly woman who had been frightened by Elena's workouts, became one of her biggest supporters, often working out nearby and celebrating Elena's progress. Elena's recovery continued to progress. Her speech became clearer, her motor control improved, and her confidence grew stronger every day. 6 months after our confrontation, she was able to complete a modified deadlift with 15 pounds, a moment that brought tears to the eyes of everyone watching. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in me. Working with Elena taught me that true fitness isn't about perfect form or maximum weight. It's about showing up. It's doing your best with what you have, and never giving up on yourself. Elena and I eventually became friends. She helped me understand the gym experience from the perspective of someone with a disability. Together we developed programming that made Elite Fitness a model for inclusive fitness, attracting members from rehabilitation centers throughout the region. One day, almost a year after our first meeting, Elena approached me with a proposal. Marcus, she said, her speech now much clearer, I've been thinking about returning to work as a physical therapist, but I want to specialize in fitness-based recovery. Would you be interested in partnering with me? Looking at her, this incredible woman who had forgiven me for my worst moment and helped me become a better person, I knew there was only one answer. I would be honored, I said. Today, Elena and I run a specialized program at Elite Fitness for stroke survivors and people recovering from traumatic brain injuries. We've helped dozens of people reclaim their relationship with fitness and their confidence in their bodies every day. I'm reminded of the lesson Elena taught me. Never assume you understand someone's struggle. Never judge someone's effort by appearances. And never underestimate the courage it takes for someone to show up and try. To everyone who might be reading this story, whether you're dealing with a recovery of your own or you've witnessed someone struggling at the gym, remember that the person working hardest might be the one who looks like they're doing it wrong. Before you judge, before you complain, before you say something you can't take back, ask yourself, what if this person is fighting the biggest battle of their life? Elena saved me from becoming someone I wouldn't have been able to live with. Showed me that true strength isn't about how much weight you can lift. It's about how gracefully you can forgive, how courageously you can start over, and how generously you can help others along the way. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories. We are all human. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon.